Chapter 10, The Legacy, How 9/11 Changed America and the World Forever. The smoke cleared, but it never really left. A new century, redefined. Before 8:46 a.m. on September 11, 2001, the 21st century was still blank. Globalization was in full swing. The Cold War was a memory. The internet was exploding. The future felt limitless. Then the towers fell. The Pentagon burned. A field in Pennsylvania scarred. And the century was rewritten in real time. From that moment on, every headline, every law, every border, every conversation about war, surveillance, identity, and freedom would carry the invisible watermark of 9/11. The homeland becomes a fortress. In the months following the attacks, America changed physically and psychologically. The Department of Homeland Security was created in 2002, fusing 22 agencies into the third largest cabinet department. The Transportation Security Administration, TSA, was born, revolutionizing airport screening with full-body scans, liquid restrictions, and shoe removals. Color-coded terror alerts became part of the national vocabulary. Surveillance expanded exponentially. Phone metadata, email scanning, and international data sharing became standard under FISA amendments, and Section 215 of the Patriot Act no-fly lists swelled to include thousands, sometimes erroneously. The U.S. had not only fortified its borders, it had fortified its psyche. Fear was now policy. A forever war, what began as a manhunt in Afghanistan, became something much bigger and much harder to define. By 2021, the United States had launched military operations in more than 85 countries under the umbrella of the War on Terror. This included drone strikes, special forces raids, proxy wars, and counterterrorism funding. Key fronts included Afghanistan, 2001-2021, the longest war in U.S. history; Iraq, 2003-2011, 2014-present, launched under disputed claims of WMDs and Al-Qaeda links; Somalia, Yemen, Pakistan, Libya, Syria, drone warfare and JSOC-led operations; Africa's Sahel region, where Al-Qaeda and ISIS affiliates continue to grow the numbers. Over 900,000 people killed in direct conflict. According to Brown University's Costs of War project, 38 million displaced, $8 trillion spent. The war on terror didn't bring closure. It created a new global terrain of endless vigilance. The rise of the surveillance state. The 9/11 attacks opened a new chapter in intelligence. The era of predictive monitoring. Agencies like the NSA, CIA, FBI, and their foreign counterparts began sharing unprecedented volumes of data. Tools designed for Cold War espionage were turned inward. Edward Snowden's revelations in 2013 confirmed what many feared. Americans were being watched, not as individuals, but as data points, emails, phone calls, web searches, travel records. The argument: if you have nothing to hide, you have nothing to fear. But others warned, freedom erodes in silence, not in sirens. The culture war comes home domestically. 9/11 ignited identity-based paranoia. Muslim Americans faced a 500% spike in hate crimes in the year following the attacks. Mosques were vandalized. Innocents were profiled, detained, and surveilled. The idea of a terrorist became a racialized caricature: dark-skinned, bearded, foreign. But the war's language eventually turned inward. Enemy combatants became domestic extremists. Surveillance programs originally built for foreign terror were later used against journalists, protesters, and whistleblowers. Guantanamo-style logic bled into policing. In trying to defeat terror abroad, America imported the architecture of fear to its own backyard. Guantanamo and the gray zone of law. In January 2002, the first detainees arrived at Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. Held without trial, many subjected to enhanced interrogation, torture, they became the human symbols of the post-9/11 legal abyss. As men passed through Guantanamo's of 2024, 30 remain, fewer than 10 were ever convicted. The U.S. Supreme Court ruled multiple times that detainees had legal rights. But the camp remains open. It became a paradox, a place where justice was suspended in the name of justice. Iraq, the war that fractured trust in 2003, The Bush administration invaded Iraq, claiming Saddam Hussein possessed weapons of mass destruction and had ties to Al-Qaeda. Both claims were later debunked. But the war killed over 200,000 civilians, toppled a regime but left a vacuum filled by chaos, gave birth to ISIS, a far more brutal successor to Al-Qaeda. For many, Iraq wasn't just a mistake. It was betrayal, a misuse of 9/11's pain for geopolitical gain. The American public's trust in government never fully recovered. The cultural aftershock 11 didn't just change policy. It rewrote art, film, literature, and media. Movies like United 93, World Trade Center, Zero Dark 30, and The Report tried to make sense of the senseless. Novels like Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close gave grief a child's voice. TV turned darker. 24, Homeland, The Looming Tower, Jack Ryan. Superheroes became militarized, wounded, conflicted, mirroring the American psyche. But beneath it all was a sense of permanent rupture. There was no return to innocence. Only adaptation to a world where terror lived just one push away. Memorialization and memory wars. In 2011, the 9/11 Memorial and Museum opened at Ground Zero, a solemn space of water, light, names, and silence. But remembrance itself became contested. Some felt it was too sanitized, too corporate. Others found it cathartic and sacred. Annual ceremonies became rituals of resilience, but also fatigue. The tension was clear. How do you honor the dead without exploiting them? How do you remember tragedy without freezing a nation in grief? In schools, debates erupted over how 9/11 should be taught. In politics, it became a tool for fear or a symbol of unity, depending on who held the microphone. Children of the rubble by 2025, a generation of Americans has been born after 9/11, raised under surveillance, war, and a culture of constant caution. Many of them never boarded a plane without security. Theater grew up hearing Arabic used only in terror contexts. Watched drone footage more than cartoons. They inherited a country that never fully healed, but never fully surrendered either. Their challenge: to remember without reliving, to secure without suffocating, and to honor without hardening. The echoes in today's world. 11 echoes in every act of modern governance. Border debates, airport screenings, immigration bans, surveillance legislation, domestic extremism, classifications, tech company, data partnerships with government agencies. It reverberates in foreign policy decisions. From Afghanistan's withdrawal to aid in Ukraine, from Syria's red lines to Iran's nuclear negotiations. It is not an event anymore. It is a wound that pulses in the nervous system of civilization. Closing reflection: smoke that never settled. The true legacy of 9/11 is not just war, fear, or revenge. It is the story we told ourselves after the towers fell, and the actions we took in the name of that story. We hunted evil but found mirrors. We built walls but cracked foundations. We honored heroes but sometimes forgot what they died for. There are moments in history that divide time. 9/11 was one of them, before and after, innocence and experience, sky and ash. We still live in its shadow, and perhaps always will.